just generationally, Gen X is uniquely qualified to lend experience, strength, and hope about what's going on, because the people who have sort of been overseeing the ritualistic torture of the American people are basically our parents. Hey everyone, welcome back. And I just wanted to jump on and share a little experience, strength, and hope around the subject of betrayal. I think as a nation, we're all sort of feeling a little bit betrayed right now with good reason. You know, I think we're starting to internalize a little bit more about how the misuse was being allocated. In the beginning, it was just about identifying the misuse. And a lot of us, you know, this is not new to us. You know, I'm not uninformed by any stretch of the imagination about the shenanigans that have been going on in this country. But I think we went to another level when we started to understand a little bit more about how the misuse was being applied. It's one thing for there to be misuse and corruption, you know, and embezzlement, you know, and sort of fraud. It's another thing to think about how all that money is being used to defraud the American people. Like, what are the actual programs? I think we're learning that our money was actually used to make us suffer, right? And it's sort of being pointed out. And what we're realizing is these people that work in the government were the ones doing it, or a lot of it. So people losing their jobs right now had jobs that were to make us suffer more and you know, have uncertainty, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So they wanted us in a state of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They wanted us constantly in a state of fight or flight. We're being subjected to poisonous food. You know, we're being subjected to poisonous medicine. We're being tormented over time at a level that we've hyper-normalized that is so ridiculously abnormal. And all this is sort of occurring to us. And so we've gone from knowing there's misuse to understanding how the misuse has been allocated. And it's really been by the guy next door, by our neighbors, right? By our own government. And so what you have to understand now is that we're going to learn that a lot of the people who had jobs working for the U.S. government were, in fact, in the business of making all of us suffer more. Or we are realizing this. You know, it's not just that there's been misuse. We're starting to understand what the misuse has been. And as a result, you know, we're feeling betrayed. Just generationally, Gen X is uniquely qualified to lend experience, strength, and hope about what's going on, because the people who have sort of been overseeing the ritualistic torture of the American people are basically our parents, right? And I think our federal government can be broadly painted as narcissistic, right? Like, we are coming to the realization that our government is sort of a narcissistic abuser, right? That keeps telling us it's our fault. Like, no, it's your fault. You need to work harder. No, it's your fault. Like, you need to take more medicine. No, it's your fault. You know, like, you need to go to the dentist. It's not our fault, you know, that we're poisoning you with everything you put in your body, right? It's not our fault that we're misleading you, and on and on and on and on. It's obviously, you know, our government is a toxic, narcissistic parent. And who better, really, to sort of comment on this than Gen X, right? Because we all know who Gen X's parents are. They're the people who are running things in this country right now. They are the people who are currently, you know, driving the Titanic into the iceberg right now. And so, inasmuch, I do feel uniquely qualified to share, my experience, strength, and hope surrounding what we're going through collectively, this betrayal, these feelings of betrayal, and sort of what I do to get over it. And the first thing I always do is I realize that, I'm the one with the power, right? I'm the one that is recalibrating reality in truth, not falsehood. I'm going to be persecuted for telling the truth. That's just the way it's always been. What has been more interesting to me is understanding the preponderance of liars out there, understanding the preponderance of people who are willing just to sell you out or, their family out or their neighbor out to make money. Like, there are people who have been brainwashed into thinking that whatever you got to do to get paid is fair game. That's the death match, right? That's the Hunger Games death match that we deal with here in this country. But that's a narcissistic projection, right? Like, we have no idea what it would be like to live in a sane environment. We have no idea what it would be like to live in harmony with our environment. And again, as someone who has learned to regulate himself after extraordinary measures or extraordinary circumstances led to measures that would be dysregulating. Again, I'm uniquely qualified to share a little bit about how to stay regulated given the level of betrayal that we're experiencing and the feelings of abandonment that we're experiencing collectively right now. And the first thing I always do is, I realize that I'm the one with the power. I'm the one staying in alignment. I'm the one in integrity. I'm the one, that's prioritizing ethics, morality, treating others as I would like to be treated. I mean, I don't care who said it. It's true, right? Being in integrity and congruous, right? Being congruous leads to walking around in a higher vibration, keeping it simple. That's what the truth represents. Now, falsehood represents complexity. It represents a vulnerability. It represents fear, anxiety, constantly having to, squeeze yourself into situations or squeeze yourself out of situations that create anxiety. Being a liar is much more fearful and anxiety provoking and just a drag. Being a liar sucks than it is just sort of being simple and honest. Like, when you're simple and honest, you have power because your frequency is higher, right? The highest frequency wins. We're in a frequency war. That's why they're constantly trying to bring our frequency down. And so the first thing I always remind myself is that I'm actually the one with the power. They have the power to sort of create illusions. They have the power to try to make you feel bad about yourself. That's what narcissistic personalities do. They make you feel bad about yourself, right? They trick you into feeling bad about yourself, which is not real power. Okay, it's a trick. A trick is not power. A trick gets you to use your own power against yourself. And so always reminding myself that I have the true power, right, of integrity, morality, congruity, right, and frequency. And so then it's easier to understand that they are weak, right? And so what they are doing is akin to, a badger that has his paw stuck in a bear trap or something like that. They're trying to defend their lives, right? Because you have no idea what could be life-threatening to a liar at this level, right? When you lie and steal and cheat and extort, and enslave, the truth really can kill you. Like, these people have a lot to hide. And I don't. My life is pretty simple and straightforward. It's congruous. And I generally hang out in a pretty high frequency because I'm doing the best I can for everyone, to the best of my ability, while remaining in integrity pretty much all the time. It's just keeping it simple. So always remember that I have the real power, and that all they have is the power of suggestion, right? Or the narcissistic projection. That's always, always, always. That's what the devil does. That's what narcissistic personality disorders do. That's what they all do, is try to get you, right, to not feel good about yourself. And as long as you're not doing anything that makes you feel bad about yourself, and for me it was being out of integrity. If I'm working against myself, or if I'm not in alignment with my true values, like my love of nature, if I'm out of harmony with that, like recalibrate back to that. If I feel as if I've mistreated someone, like do what you got to do to make that right. So keeping it simple, right? Keeping my side of the street clean, being humble, right? Humble's not necessarily simple, but it is human, right? Part of what we see a lot of are people who feel as if they're entitled to a little bit more than the rest of us for some reason, right? They seem to have lost touch with their humility. And if you must die so that I may prosper, then that's just the way it is, then so be it. I get it. That's where the MK Ultra mind control comes into it. A lot of this sickness is projected onto the collective. It's not our idea, generally speaking. We do have these huge receivers, right? And so a lot of the ideas we come up with aren't even our own to begin with, but we do need to have the compass, the moral compass, right? The true north, and the fortitude to get ourselves out of it. And so another thing I like to do, when I consider being betrayed or who's betrayed me, is to remind myself that they have it worse than I do, right? Like I was just saying, being a liar is difficult. Being a liar doesn't feel good. Even at your best, when you're insane, you're not as good as the worst day of a sane person. And I remember being insane and envying the sane in a way that the vitriol I felt, the envy. And they didn't have to do anything. They were just breathing better than I was. And I knew it. And what I mean to say about that is, what's going on inside of someone who is congruous and simple and honest, and truthful and ethical, rather than someone who's trying to get what they want all the time, right? Versus wanting what you have. Being someone who's always trying to get what they want, chasing that life sucks. That life sucks. So they generally have it worse than I do. The person who betrayed me, or in this case, the organization or the institution, they have it worse. What these people have been up to, and this is part of what we're learning, right? This is part of the source of the betrayal, is that, it was the guy next door, or the gal next door. It was my neighbor. It was my parents. It was my teachers, the people who raised me, the people that worked for these institutions, who were basically selling me out and participating in my ritualistic torture, because as Americans, we've all just been sort of tortured for the last 120 years or so. And it was us, it was them. It was our own people doing it to us. And so as we peel back, like actually how, right, we learn more about the people who were doing it, right? We learn, like, all these people who are being fired, these tens of thousands of people who are being let go from the federal government. They're not just waste, they're misuse. Well, what were you doing? How were you misusing? What sort of programs were you running? And again, if you're one of these people, like, your karma's fucked up at this point. Like, you're coming back. You got to do another lap. That's for sure. And now that the cat's out of the bag, now that you've been sort of flagged by humanity, it's not going to be easy for you. It's going to be tough. Now that so many people who were sort of blindly having their power stolen from them, who are now sort of reclaiming their power and just being like, wait a minute, what? Like, other countries don't have to pay property taxes? Like, hold on, what? Now that people are reclaiming their power en masse, all the people who were doing the disempowering, all the sort of scumbags who were behind it, they're having margin calls right now. Basically, that's how it works. When you reclaim your power, when you say, take my power back from that situation that was stealing my power, the situation that was stealing the power has to pay up. There's a margin call. Like, you got to pay. You got to show your hand. And everything you stole, you now have to pay back. And for those of us who have basically spent the last lifetime, transmuting our karma, getting out from underneath our misdeeds, lifetimes of misdeeds, this lifetime for certain has been spent in the process of overcoming our past life karma and trauma. And so we're sort of ahead of the game. And these folks who have been, I guess, just holdouts, right, of the old way, of the dishonest way, they're going to have to pay up now. That's what I mean by margin call. Everything that they have stolen from us, now that we're reclaiming our power, is going to need to be repaid. So that's not going to be pleasant. This process that is unfolding is not going to be pleasant. And so for as much of the suffering as we've been through, we've at least been doing it in the pursuit of what's best for everyone. Like, we've at least been trying to keep it real, at least been trying to be honest, right? The reason why they sold us out is because they thought they were going to win. They thought it was hopeless. They thought that the only choice for survival was to sell us out. And they're realizing they bet on the wrong horse. They're realizing that goodness is actually, goodness and love is actually more powerful than darkness and evil. And I wouldn't want to be waking up and realizing that I bet on the wrong horse. I wouldn't want to be waking up and realize that all of the compromises I made to my integrity and my ethics and my morality, that I thought I had to make in order to survive, turned out, I just did all that because I'm a weak person. I just did all that because I didn't have the guts to stay good. And now I'm seeing that there were a few who were brave enough, who did suffer for decades under the weight of betrayal. Constant betrayal. If you're trying to do things the right way in America, on planet Earth, the betrayal and abandonment that you go through over the course of your life is extraordinary. And so as these people who sold out realize how extraordinary you are, for sticking with it, and how unextraordinary they are for not, I wouldn't want to trade places with them. For all the pain that we've had to go through, I still would not want to trade places with them right now. So again, as we go through these feelings of betrayal and abandonment, keep in mind that what's coming for them, it's not pleasant. And what's coming for us is. It is. And not only did you make it, but you did a good job. Not only did you survive, but you helped others survive too. Not only did you hang in there, but you helped others hang in there. Like, yes, it's been hard. Yes, have I suffered personally? I don't talk about my suffering, but I've had an extraordinarily painful life. The irony, my life has been bitterly ironic. There's good, rich stores of irony tied to betrayal and abandonment, for sure. Many a plot line has been written. Many an ironic plot line has been written, based on those principles. It has been difficult. But in the moments, where it becomes difficult, what I say to myself is the same, that I'm saying now, which is that I still wouldn't want to trade places with the bad guys. I still wouldn't want to be dark or evil or nefarious or, in it only for the money. Like, I'm just so grateful for the fact that I didn't fall for that. So reminding myself that I wouldn't want to trade places with my betrayer. And then, of course, there's, the sort of psychology today, like practical stuff like forgiveness, right? Forgiveness isn't the pardon. Forgiveness is letting go of the negative feeling, which is basically acting and knowing and believing as if it never happened in the first place. That's true forgiveness. Reframing it, right? Putting it in the perspective of learning, reality is your teacher, right? Like, what did I learn from this? How is it going to make me stronger in the future? All that is also very helpful, but really remembering your power, remembering that liars have no real power and they're just trying to convince you to abdicate yours, right? They're just trying to convince you to give them your power. Remembering that, it's kind of just a difficult life. It kind of just sucks to constantly be lying and constantly be stealing and manipulating and running game. It's just not a good way to live. And then to sort of look to the future and think about what they've got coming to them now that we've all reclaimed our power. Because it was touch and go until reality or society started taking their power back. But once we started saying, oh no, like, I'm not going to move, you move, right? Once we started saying, like, oh my gosh, it's not me, it's them, and knowing it, to our core, stopped apologizing, for things that weren't our fault, and then started reclaiming our power from situations that used to baffle us, just taking it back. Like, ever since we started doing that, the tables have turned. Okay, ever since we started doing that, it's really been over for them because they have nothing. They have nothing but illusion, smoke and mirrors, word games, grammar fraud. That's all. I mean, no matter how you slice it, that's all narcissistic projection. Like, we're onto them. And so, yeah, and then keep in mind not to be vindictive or spiteful, right? Forgive them immediately. Let go, right, of vindication or spite or, vitriol or venom or vengeance. Like, let it go, man. Just keep your because again, we're in a frequency war, right? Highest vibration, highest frequency wins. So that's another thing that, again, like, once we took our power back, once we started saying, like, you're lying, right? Or no, you move. Our frequency has stayed where it needs to be, right? So with boundaries, right? Like, why? Well, I don't want you messing with my frequency. Well, and then more of us who have been sort of able to do that, the higher the collective frequency has gotten, right? And so that weakens their position and strengthens ours simultaneously. So keeping that in mind, like, we truly are more powerful. because we have higher frequencies. Is rule number one, though. That's always my anchor point. Like, right, protect the frequency. And when you do that, it might take a minute, for the ripple effect to sort of smooth things out, but it will. And if you reclaim your power, the retribution just comes through the ether, right? The correction or the recalibration just gets sent back their way through a wave, right? Because you've straightened your wave out. It's going to go all the way back to where the disruption began, the genesis, the commencement. And they're then going to have to shake, rattle, and roll until they get straightened out. Does that make sense? So I know collectively we're all sort of dealing with this betrayal and this abandonment. And I've been feeling it and seeing it and going through it myself on a personal level, on a more of a micro level, right? And again, like once we start to see how the misuse is demonstrated, it's like, oh, they've been doing that to us. Like damn. Like, damn, they've been doing it. Like, they have been, like, what are you doing with our money? Like, how high tech is your surveillance equipment? Like, what have all the tens of thousands, right, of government employees who basically sold out their own people been doing? Like, what have you all been doing? Like, if your job is to watch me go to the bathroom, like, what does that say about you? Like, you're basically getting paid to spy on me go to the bathroom. Like, you spend your life watching me go to the bathroom. So when you think about it, what have these people been up to? And it's very quick. Oh, so your job is to listen to my phone calls and watch me go to the bathroom. Like, oh, like I really am more powerful than you. See how that works? Anyway, I hope this helped. That's all for now. Thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you next time.